Today on BRStv, we're going to discuss some methods of hooking up your RO system directly to your sump for auto top-off. Hi, I'm Ryan, host of BRStv, where each Tuesday we cover a new how-to related to reefing. This week we're going to show you a couple of methods of hooking up your RO system directly to your sump. Next to water changes, replacing evaporated water is probably the next biggest maintenance step and can be both a giant time suck but also a source of instability in the tank. The most common solution to this is a reliable and safe auto top-off like the Tunes osmolator. That's still going to require you to fill a reservoir with water. One alternative to this is to hook up your RO system directly to your tank and continually supply water, which will mean you'll never have to haul around another bucket of fresh water in your life, and your tank salinity will be ultra stable. Okay, that said, I'm going to start with a couple of reasons why this is a bad idea. First, we just connected a basically never-ending supply of fresh water to your tank, which is dangerous for the tank and your home. Second, the nature of evaporation is slow, which means the RO system is going to turn off and on continually all day. This is going to result in an effect known as TDS creep, where the water leaving the membrane will have a higher TDS and you'll consume more DI resin faster. However, there's a couple of things that you can do to manage these two elements. If you decided you're going to do this, the first step is take a look at your tank. How much time and money did you put into this, and how devastating would it be if you lost everything? Use that information to decide how much redundancy you want to put into this system. Second, look at your home and the room the tank is in and decide how much damage a couple 100 gallons of salt water could do to this room if it failed. And more importantly, the chances that your spouse divorces you over what you did to their home. Use this information to really decide how much redundancy you want to add to this system. So step one is likely just a simple float valve like this one. Just drill a hole and install the valve. Float valves like these rarely fail catastrophically, but the seals can go bad and something can get stuck in the valve like a snail or chunk of algae. On a long enough timeline, everything fails, and I want my tank up for 10 years, not 3, so for that reason, I think you need to add some redundancy. First thing is float valves come in two types, adjustable and non-adjustable. I suggest taking the adjustable ones and throwing them in the trash. While it's nice that you can adjust them, the wing nut is just another point of failure. If this loosens over time, the float will be useless and flood the tank. The non-adjustable ones have a permanent off position and much safer. The easiest redundancy you can add to a top-off solution like this is a leak detector. This is just a battery-operated valve that turns off the probe if it ever detects water. I suggest installing this directly before the float valve. If the sump were to ever overflow, the probe would detect the moisture and shut off the water supply. What's nice is it also sets off an audible alarm, so you'll know it was triggered and you should do something about it. The probe is about as simple as it gets, just two metal pads. If any moisture crosses them, it creates an electrical connection, it triggers a valve and an alarm in the leak detector. Well, a solution like this will still allow the sump to fill with fresh water. There's a good chance it won't have a seriously detrimental effect on the tank. It'll be a huge step in protecting your home. The leak detector does have the ability to daisy chain multiple probes if you want to cover more area or more than one location. Just slide the clips onto the original probe and you're set. One interesting thing you can do with this as well is add some electrical clips to the end of a float switch and attach it to the end of the leak detector's probe. Install it above the float valve. If the valve ever fails, the switch will rise, create an electrical connection, and trigger the leak detector's valve and audible alarm. Biggest downfall of a system like this is it requires batteries to work. I find the batteries do last a pretty long time, but it's something that can be easily overlooked. For those of you with a few extra bucks to spend and looking for something even more robust, you can add a normally closed solenoid to this system, attached to an auto top-off system which can add the desired redundancy. This can be done with just a powered solenoid or something more advanced. If you have a Neptune Apex controller, you could do something really advanced using a solenoid, an IO switch box, and a float switch or even series of float switches. They also have their own leak detection option called the ALD module, which has similar leak detection probes as the ones we mentioned earlier. However, they come in two types, a heavier block designed to be set down and a thin version designed to be slid under carpet. With the use of the Neptune, you can not only trigger the solenoid to shut off the supply of water, but you can also set off an audible alarm and use their Fusion interface to email you of the problem, or if you're on vacation, it can text or email the person watching your tank. If you use a powered solenoid option, you can also use your Apex controller or even a simple digital timer to further increase the redundancy by restricting the amount of time the solenoid is powered and open. For instance, if my tank evaporated around a gallon a day, I could set the timer to only power and open the solenoid for 25 minutes once a day, which should be sufficient on most 75 gallon per day systems. This also happens to be one of the better solutions to the TDS creep and increased DI resin consumption issues we mentioned earlier. Rather than the RO system continually turning on and off all day long, you can have it open just once a day. This isn't the perfect solution for maintaining perfectly stable salinity, but every option has its advantages and disadvantages. Last bit of advice is if you use a leak detector like this one or a solenoid, make sure to put it on the line after the RO system, or even better after the DI stage. It's the minerals in tap water that typically fouls these valves and shortens their lifespan. Placing it on the purified line will greatly increase the lifespan of the valve. If you have any questions about all this or advice for your fellow reefers, check out the comments area down below. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button because we release new videos every Tuesday and Friday. See you next week with another episode of BRStv.